Where to go? So, some of you might be surprised to see me here. At one point, I was supposed to give the Dharma talk today. But then, last weekend, my wife came down with COVID. So I called Lama Kathy and I said, I might be, like a walking petri dish by next Sunday. So she was going to do it. So that information went out. And then Jeannie got some Paxlovid, and she was over it in a day or a day and a half, and I never tested positive. So apparently, I don't know. So I called back, and Lama Kathy's an insanely busy person. She does a ton for us, most of which we don't see. But I figured if I could do this part, it might be helpful. So I reached out and I asked her, and she said, oh, that'd be great. So here I am, back in the saddle again. Some of you may have been kind of following along ever since, I don't know, last year when we got the transmission for the Karmakaju Lineage Prayer. I started talking about the parts of that, and that evolved into talking about Refuge. And we talked about that in some detail, like how to use those 3 repetitions of Refuge to take your meditation deeper and deeper. And then we talked about Bodhicitta, because guess what? That's literally the foundation of everything we do, or one of the 2 main foundations is Refuge and Bodhicitta. And the last time I just finished that piece of the 4 immeasurables with a talk on equanimity. The way that I'm thinking about this is that, in my opinion, we all should have a daily practice. Why? Well, because for one thing, I pray every day that all beings would be free of suffering. I pray that they'll have happiness and the causes of happiness. And guess what your big get out of jail free card is? Well, it's not free exactly, but your get out of jail, key is, maybe not free, but key, is actually having a daily practice. I'm totally convinced of that. So, I'm just being honest here. I'm going to try to sell you on that idea again. And we're going to go to the next piece. Usually when we do practice, what we're doing is we're taking our mind through gates, step by step. So we start with something called the view, and there's a couple ways to do that. We can contemplate the Mahamudra Refuge Prayer, or Lineage Prayer, totally perfect. We can do the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, totally perfect. We've talked about some of those. And then, once we kind of have created that condition, we've kind of redefined our normal way of thinking, our normal consciousness, based on this excellent view that the Buddha taught. Then we begin to recognize, okay, how is it really for me? And so refuge is a natural thing to come next. It's like, okay, I'm in a storm here. There's a lot going on, some of which I like, some of which I don't, all of that. And I can't seem to make much progress just left to my own devices. And so we take refuge. And once we've taken refuge and we've kind of calmed down the unit and brought it to a little rest, then we can think about what we want that unit to be filled with. Well, it's my faith, it's my belief that what I've been taught is true. That if I want to be happy, what I want to fill the unit with, my storage locker here, is loving kindness and compassion and mindfulness. These are the three components of happiness. Okay, so we do a little reflection on kindness and compassion. Once we've created those conditions for ourselves, and we can use the prayers like that are here, there's all kinds of resources. And I would encourage you to look at a bunch of resources, see what resonates with you. They're always going to have this kind of setup, though, because human psychology is what it is. We share so many of the same hurdles. You all know that by now, right? We all are very lonely, and we think we're alone in this thing, and we're not. The truth is we all share similar hurdles. So we start opening the gates by opening the gate to a view that's conducive to these conditions for happiness. And then we actually take refuge in those conditions themselves, all right? And in the refuge prayer, we talk about Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So let's just, 3 Sanskrit words. Buddha is awakened mind. So before I get into this thing we're doing today about Guru Yoga, you have to have opened a few gates already. You have to have opened those gates I mentioned, but subtly underneath that, there's got to be an active recognition that our guru, our teacher, has the same mind as Buddha. And in fact, that in some condition, in some way, that mind is actually in every sentient being. Every sentient being has this spark of happiness and wisdom, goodness. It's in there. And so when we do Guru Yoga, what we're doing is saying, okay, I believe that. I believe in Buddha nature. I believe in interdependence. I believe we're all connected. Okay. But I haven't really experienced that directly yet. I still feel kind of alone and feel kind of different. And, all of that, I'm not seeing it directly. So what we've been taught and what I believe to be true, my own experience a little bit, is that while Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dakinis and Dakinis and all of this doesn't appear to me except that somebody has shared their artistic vision of it with me. I'm not quite seeing that with my own eyes and my own consciousness yet most of the time. However, when I call on any of these enlightened beings for help, guess what? Help comes. You might call it a little miracle or a little mystical or a little this. It doesn't matter. It's not that. So now and then, if you're a meditator, you'll recognize that and you'll have a lot of gratitude, of course, and that is a good first step towards having a little of what we've labeled as devotion. And what we mean by devotion is we've realized that there's something dependable here and that we can go back to that again and again and depend on love and compassion and help when we need it. The issue with our meditation is that, as you probably all have already experienced, we might get a moment of clarity and then it gets kind of swept away by our thinking and the stories we tell ourselves. And, you know, if we're really good about dropping a thought and staying present and mindful, you know, there'll always be something more compelling. So if you're a good enough meditator to realize that while you're meditating and the grocery list comes up, you know, that's ridiculous on the face of it. So you can just say, oh, there's a grocery list there, and you can just drop it and let it go. You know, but then it's something about your kids, and it gets a little more compelling. And then there's something about your own health or something like that, and it's even more compelling. And all that is to say that our mindfulness isn't very stable. So there's another gate in front of us, and that gate is the gate of what I call the gate of allies. And it's a way of cultivating a deep connection with our teacher, with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who all share the same nature. And this key to this gate is called Guru Yoga. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. How many of you have heard of Guru Yoga before or have practiced it? Okay, so I will try to make this as useful as possible for everybody. But before I begin with that, let's start with the Refuge prayer. We'll say it 3 times. We'll chant it in Tibetan twice, and then just recite it together in English for the 3rd time. Sanjay Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Chang Chu Pardu Dakni Kyab Suchi Daki Jin Sogi Pe Sonam Ki Rola Pinshir Sanjay Drupar Sho Sanjay Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Changchu Bardu Dakni Kyab Suji Daki Jinso Kipe Sonam Ki Rola Penshir Sanjay Drupar Sho. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. So Guru Yoga really is kind of going over the same territory. But the way that this Dharma practice thing works is that we start with where we are, which is that our senses are all cranking and our consciousnesses are all cranking and we're experiencing life the way we experience life. And we bring that, just as it is, to the meditation. It's really important, I think, to realize that we bring ordinary mind, such as it is, to meditation in general. Because if we're trying to say, well, I must be in a special mind state before I go and do this meditation, there's a problem with that. For one thing, we may never be in that special mind state. And the second thing is that what we're bringing is something that is at best temporary, possibly an illusion, possibly unstable. Whereas, if we can bring our ordinary life into the meditation just as it is, with whatever problems, we actually can be processing those. And in that way, those things that obstruct us, hinder us, imprison us, actually get processed. And there's a little trust involved, a little faith involved that these teachings are authentic and that they will work and that they will not harm us, because we don't know. We haven't been there yet. Fortunately, we've got 2,600 years of history, and the magnificent successes and the colossal failures, and they are recorded, and we get to read them and see what they are, so that the things that are brought to us, I think we can generally regard as trustworthy. Why? Well, it's a funny thing. If you've been meditating for a while, what you realize is, sure, you want your own happiness and well-being. Absolutely. Well-being is the key. We all want that. And then we realize sooner or later that everybody wants that. And then beyond that, we realize, I really can't seem to experience this well-being so directly when I see suffering over there. Well, it's like that for the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the teachers, visible and invisible. They're all around all the time, and guess what? The only thing left that they desire, is your enlightenment. They're rooting for you. They're pulling for you. They can't just dump it on your head. If they could, they would. Trust me on this. Easier for everybody. But somehow, it doesn't work that way. However, they can give us these teachings and these practices and show us how to use them as keys to open these gates on the path that we each have to walk ourselves. So this is another key in the path. In our tradition, there's this thing gurus do, and it's happened here. For some of you who've been here. When Lopan was here last year, he gave the Vajrasattva empowerment, and recently Lama Karma gave an empowerment. And one of the ways that blessing is transmitted formally from our teachers is through this process of empowerment, which is like a direct blessing. And what's going on during an empowerment is we sit quiet and receptive and open. That's it. It's our job just to drop all the noise and be receptive. And then whatever the teacher who's giving what we call empowerment does is he tunes in to his own Buddha nature, usually always, somebody who's authorized to give empowerment has reached a state of meditation practice where they can, in a stable way, come into their own Buddha nature and rest there. And from that point of view, or from that point of being, then the Lama, the teacher, can transmit blessings. And those blessings aren't like magical goo that travels out through the atmosphere and drops on your head and all of that kind of stuff and gets you all sticky inside and out and makes you stick to blessings. It's not like that. They create a resonance in their heart, which transmits blessing and causes your heart to resonate in the same way. It's just like two tuning forks. When they're tuned to the same frequency, what happens? You start one, and you hold it next to the other one that you haven't touched, except to hold it close, and it starts going on its own. That's what great teachers are trying to do. They're trying to say, I want you to have everything that I have. It's a total act of generosity. So in this very ritualistic kind of way, an empowerment's conferred. And then along with that, there are two other pieces. One's called the scriptural transmission, where they just read through the practice. And while they're doing it, same thing. They're trying to concentrate on transmitting the power for you to have a stable practice in that particular practice. And then there's the explanation, which gives you some way of understanding what that whole practice is about and how it works. And there are various depths and degrees of explanation. All three of those together are called Wang, which is empowerment, Tri, which is the explanation, and Lung, which is the reading transmission. I know I said them in different order, but the point I think is that even if you only receive one of those three, the Lama's doing the same thing all the time. And you know, you may find that during the ritual transmission, the Wang, something wakes up in you. That happens. Or not. Maybe for you, something happens during the explanation because you're just a more cognitive type person, you know, more of a T than an F or whatever in Myers-Briggs talk, right? For those of you who know Myers-Briggs talk, it's there to appeal to you. And for some people, just reading through the practice, because it's been practiced for probably 1,000 years that way and has accumulated so much energy and blessing in the universe that's what does it for you. You feel connected to eons of practitioners. So that's empowerment. Guru yoga is something that we can do every day. Every day. And we can do what's called, in a sense, self-empowerment. We can go through that process for ourselves. And what does that do? It gets our mind used to this alternative set of facts and reality. And I don't mean that in a political way. What I mean is that most of the time, we are being run around by what our senses tell us and what our preferences are and what the stories we tell ourselves about all that are, and we form an identity out of that. particularly out of our preferences. That's a big deal. I like this, I don't like that, that's what makes me me, right? Well, guess what? That's not you. That's the news. I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but that's the news. So, what we're doing with Guru Yoga and deity practice, which we'll get to in this series that I'm going to do, is it gives us a chance on a consistent basis to shake up that notion of self, right? And for a moment, when you practice and you've let go and purified all the aspects of yourself and you receive the blessings of a master and they mix completely, 100% inseparably with your own mind, as they say, like water being poured into water, you have a moment of this, I'm not who I think I was. I actually do resonate more deeply with compassion and loving kindness and wisdom and all those other good qualities, a little more than I thought. I thought I was just into like this 85-inch TV, but no, that isn't, I know when I order that, no, I'm not ordering that. But, when it shows up on my porch because Amazon delivered it, I'll have a moment of being happy because I got something that I thought I wanted. But within a week, it's just going to be the TV. It's not like that, though, when we actually touch the core of our being. And that's the whole object of this exercise of practice. So, I want to say that again and again. Simply, like I said, I'm going to try to sell you on the idea of doing this every day. It's very good mental hygiene. I want to make sure I don't skip anything here. I think the last image that I want to use about this is this idea that the compassion of a Buddha, of a guru, of a teacher, is like a ring. That's right there. It's offered to you all the time. It's right above your head, always there, never not there. And our faith in interdependence and our faith in Buddha nature, that we all have the potential for awakened mind, our faith in that is like a hook. And when we reach up with our hook and we get it in the teacher's ring, there's a connection that happens that is literally unbreakable. And it's through that connection that we receive the insight, the teaching, the understanding of what these experiences are, so they become useful to our own awakening, as opposed to useful for just a bigger ego trip. And it's really important to notice that. If your practice progresses and you do get into it, and there's like, you get to the point, ooh, I'm cool, I'm powerful, I meditate every day. Watch this, I can bend a spoon with my mind. You know you're in the wrong direction. The way you know you're in the right direction is twofold. One is just look at your own reactivity. That's really the big one. So you stub your toe, it hurts. That's real. If your guru stubbed his toe, it would hurt, okay? And if you're yelling up and down and you get all angry and you make it a big story and, you become the best toe stubber in Columbus, Ohio today, you haven't made it very far. However, if you stub your toe and you look, you want to make sure you didn't break it. That wouldn't be a good thing. And if you broke it, you simply calmly get to the doctor so they can set it and do what they need to do so it will heal. Or if you didn't break it, you say, oh, wow, that was intense, and you move on. Okay? So this is how we figure it out, is our reactivity. The other way that we figure it out is, honestly, is just a more natural connection to compassion. When we see something that moves us, rather than all the things that come to cover that over because it's not cool to be moved or something, when we see something that moves us and we're just moved and we connect very deeply in compassion and, potentially have some insight in how to either join or start some compassionate response to whatever it is we're seeing, that's how you know. So if you're meditating every day and you're becoming one of the greats of all time, forget about it. Go see your Lama. You need to have a talking to. If, on the other hand, you see, oh, I'm used to react really badly to that, and now you just take it in with some curiosity and interest, or even better yet, with some compassion and kindness. First of all, you don't need me to tell you that. That's obviously progress on the path. As I said before, that's what the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are. They're kindness and compassion, that's it. And they want you to have the same joy that they have at being that. So, if that's not the goal and the destination that you're interested in, well, you might be in the right pew, maybe you need a different church. But this is only going to take you there. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, I believe we should start all practices with genuine moment of mindfulness, whatever that takes. And if, that's up to you how you do that. But if you just sit on the cushion and you settle body, speech, and mind with whatever's going on in your life, the genuine stuff, and you recognize it, and you let it go, and you come into some kind of connection with the object of your meditation as opposed to your normal connection with your own flow of thoughts. And once you get that rhythm, and the thoughts come and go, but you just let them, you begin always with refuge and bodhicitta, always, for all the reasons we talked about before. And then, once you've done that, so there's like 3 gates you've gone through now. The first gate is, okay, I'm here, I want to be present, as opposed to distracted. It's like, oh, I want to continue to grow. I need some help. That's gate 2, refuge. We take refuge. Then you get the first instruction. Well, if you want to grow, you've got to wish for kindness and compassion and their causes for every single being without exception. So you got this, I'm present. I'm going to take refuge in my Buddha nature instead of my personality, whatever that is, this minute or this year. And then I'm acknowledging interdependence. The other thing, everything arises with causes and conditions, okay? So what do we want to do here? Well, next gate, let's create some conditions. Let's create conditions for the stability of this view and for blessing, okay? So this is one method to do it. In our tradition, we use it a lot. I will tell you that I won't bore you with the details, but in the early 2000s, I was going through an extraordinarily difficult time. It destroyed much of my life in some ways. The most important thing that it destroyed was the ego trip I had about myself. You know, it's funny, when the outer world collapses, so does your inner world too sometimes. You kind of say, whoa, well, turns out that wasn't me, because that's gone and I'm still here. Sometimes you've got experience of that if you ever have a surgery where they remove an organ. It's like, well, that's gone, but I'm still here. So that couldn't have been me, right? Okay. So that's that gate. But it doesn't last. So we want to stabilize it. And the way that we do that is using our imagination. This is a good thing, to use our imagination. And we start, generally, all guru yogas start with a supplication of the guru. I mean, you want to be polite, right? So you want to invite the guru, you want to ask for what you want. Khenpo Kartha Rinpoche loved a particular supplication. You can look this up, it's very common online. It goes like this. Lama Rinpoche, I turn to you. Bless me that my mind give up its ego clinging. Bless me that contentment arises in my stream of being. Bless me that all non-dharmic thoughts may cease. Bless me that mind be seen to be unborn and undying. Bless me that illusion will be at peace in itself. And bless me that mind, in all its manifestations, be seen to be the Dharmakaya. That's a supplication. There are other supplications. Also, in fact, there's a practice here that's, I think, it's incorporated in our Green Tara practice. Is the Guru Rinpoche? Yeah.
It's incorporated in both Taras, it's incorporated in everything now.
And Chenrez's, yeah.
Downloadable section on our website. It's called the Rinpoche Month, and that's included.
Right.
Everybody can get it.
So there's this Guru Rinpoche Guru Yoga, and I'm going with this one because when Karmapa came to KTD the first time, he taught on this, what's called the 7-line supplication to Guru Rinpoche. And there's a little, very short, 2-page Guru Yoga that you can use every day easily that's attached to that. So that's what I'm going to use as the framework here so that you can find it, and if you can't find it, we'll get it up on the website or something somehow. Okay. So it starts with this 7-line supplication. It's very famous. Karmapa said it's a prayer that's extraordinarily important to him since he was a kid. And it says, in case you want to know, Guru Rinpoche he's back there, right? There he is. He's in the middle there. I'm going to just read it through in English and make some comments as we go. Hung. Hung is a Tibetan syllable that just means complete openness, limitless. Okay? So Hung, and out of this complete openness, at the northwest border of Uddiyana, in the center of a lotus, you achieved wondrous supreme city and are renowned as Padmakara. So, in other words, you're enlightened. We get it. We can see that. You are surrounded by an entourage of many dakinis, and I follow in your footsteps. All those invisible beings, or visible to us, are visible to enlightened beings, by the way. That's part of the deal. As we wake up, we see more and more. Here's an important line that we have to emphasize. I follow in your footsteps is the next line. It's a big deal. It's like, okay, I want to get from here to here, here to there, and you're pointing out the path to me, and I'm going to follow that. I pray that you come here and grant your blessings. So come now. Rain down blessings on this supreme place. Bestow the 4 empowerments on me. We're about to go over that. The supreme practitioner. So now you've graduated from just ordinary person to supreme practitioner. You're my teacher. I'm your best pupil, okay? This is the way we need to look at this. Dispel obstructors, misleaders, and obstacles. So that's what you're asking for. Whatever's keeping me from seeing this directly and experiencing directly, help me remove those things. Bestow supreme and common attainments. Now, usually when I'm doing this practice, because I know that, I always encourage people to do it in their home language so they understand what it is they're saying. And it's not just magic words. It's actually keys to open the gates in your mind. You never get those keys if you don't understand that what you've got is a key. So after that, there's a period of just chanting the mantra. And so chanting the mantra is a way of invoking the guru or the deity if you're doing a deity practice. It also gives your mind a chance to get a full-blown imagination of this being that you just supplicated. And you can use a picture or whatever, but you imagine them sitting right above your head, right there, just always there. And once that becomes clear, then the practice goes on. Guru and hosts of dakinis, bless the bodies of us, your devoted children, with your bodies. Interesting. So we're going to talk about the constituents of a living being, which are body, speech, and mind, and what we do, qualities and activities. And we're going to ask blessings for each one of those. Bless our speech with your speech. Bless our minds with your minds. Bless us with the 4 empowerments. Bless us by purifying our 4 continuums. Bless us that we train in the 4 paths. Bless us that we attain the 4 bodies. So the 4 bodies are the 4 kayas, so guess what we'll talk about in the next talk? The kayas. And after that, the 5 Buddha families. So you got a lot. You're going to have a big kaleidoscopic picture that will enrich your practice, I hope, after a couple of months here. So after we do that prayer, then there's the self-empowerment. And this is the crux of the Guru Yoga, really. So you've brought yourself to this place by placing your mind in a condition where it can really receive these blessings directly, okay? And you should be patient with yourself. It's like you don't have to do this on a stopwatch. You don't have to run through it fast like somebody who just does their daily prayers really fast to get them over with and say they did them. Let your mind marinate in the experience of this. Likely won't take much time, maybe no more time, but it's just an attitude. So then the practice goes into the self-empowerment. It says, Om Ahum Vajra Guru Pema Dewa Dakini Kaya Abhikansa Om. And when you say that, so you're asking for the blessing of a kaya, right? Kaya Abhikansa. Abhikansa is the same root word as empowerment. Abhisheka is the word in Sanskrit, and Om. And when you say that syllable, you imagine that there's a white light that comes from the forehead of your guru, and it touches you in the forehead. And what it does is it gives you the realization all at once. This isn't like a thought. This is like a direct experience. That you have the same kind of body that Gautama Buddha achieved enlightenment in. And if we just purify the relationship between our consciousness and our bodies, we can remove what's in the way from a physical realization or physical presence as an enlightened being in this world. And we're going for all the gusto here, folks, all right? The second empowerment is waka, abhikansa, ah. Ah is another Tibetan seed syllable, and when you say that, you imagine the red light, it's like ruby red light, emerges from the throat of your guru and fills you through your throat with red light. Now this is interesting. That's called the empowerment of speech. And we use the word speech, but what do we use speech for? I have this question for you. Well, we use it for relating to one another. And so what we're purifying is all of our speech. Yes. And we're empowering our speech. Yes. But what does that really mean? That means our speech, our relationship with each other is going to be filled with qualities of a bodhisattva enlightened qualities. So it's not just like make my words pretty. It's like changing the whole atmosphere in our body, in our consciousness, in our minds, into generosity, ethics, patience, joyful diligence, meditative absorption or mindfulness, and wisdom. And that becomes the atmosphere within which all our thoughts are going to arise. Okay, it's very powerful. So that's the empowerment of speech. The next one is Sita Abikensa Hung. And when you say that phrase, you imagine a blue light coming from your guru's heart and touching your heart. It's called the wisdom empowerment. And when that happens, we fill up with blue light in the same way that if you see a clear night sky, you know, it's got that deepest of blues, and it's completely vast and open and unobscured by clouds or whatever. And even if there are clouds, doesn't matter, it doesn't change that. It's always there, always there. And it puts us in touch with this extraordinary, luminous openness where it's literally the locus for our consciousness of awakening, because you have infinite openness, unbounded, right? And yet it's full of light. And you can't separate them. It's like there's light in space. And when your reactivity settles down and your response to all that your senses bring you in life, you know, eyes, nose, ears, tongue, feelings, sensations, consciousness, all that, whatever is brought to you by those things in life, when your response is love and compassion, that's the light that fills up that infinite sky. So what we're doing here is we're engendering that. We want to marinate, we want to sink into that, even if it's just for a moment, all right? That's our mind. It's openness filled with energy. And then the last one, Sarva Abhikansa Hri, which means all three lights come together all at once. Wham! And in the text, they say that purifies even the subtlest energies. I have a little more practical offering than that. What are the subtle energies? Well, frankly, it's our preferences. I like this and I don't like that. And we take that as reality. I don't care about that. And we take that as things we don't need to care about. And that blocks us from seeing things as they are. If we have like a standard of beauty, whatever that is, apparently that's a thing in our culture, we can look at somebody who doesn't meet that standard and miss them, ignore them. How many people are overlooked all the time simply because they don't meet some standard that we're carrying around in our minds? Obviously, if you're gonna be involved in the enlightenment of every being without exception, if you're joining that universal movement, right? You've got to drop your preferences. It's not that you won't have them, but you don't have to respond to them in the same way. You can say, oh, there's one of my preferences there, and just drop it. and open, right? So this fourth purification gets to this subtle level. I don't know about you, but when I'm sitting in meditation, and I can get quiet, and it's, oh, it's so nice. My mind is being so cooperative. And then I'm not realizing that there's this dialogue saying, this is so nice. My mind is being so cooperative. Guess what? Thinking, let that go. That's the subtle level. I like it when my meditation's like this, or I'm really struggling, I cramps in my legs, whatever. Oh, I got, you know, and it's like you don't think about that as being part of your mindfulness practice, but it is. And this empowerment's acknowledging that there's a subconscious or even an unconscious that we almost are never aware of, that's full of judgments and labels. That's what we do with that. We label things and then we judge them. And then we put that together and think that's a self. And then we think that self is going to get enlightened and be an eternal something or other. That's not how it works. That self is going to dissolve, okay? So here's what happens. After that fourth empowerment, you've dissolved this level of, this really subtle level of chatter that's there all the time. And for a moment, or maybe more than a moment, you feel profound rest. That's the object of the exercise. You've gone through that gate where you can rest in luminous openness, and it might not last long, okay? When you're resting in luminous openness, there's something for you to do, though. I kind of like this. I like having something to do. I like Vajrayana for that. It gives you plenty of stuff to do. So you imagine that the guru dissolves above your head from the lotus and moon seed, up from the feet, just do it in detail, the feet, and down from the head, and the whole guru's dissolving into his own heart or her own heart, right? Their own heart, anything like that. And so into a ball of light, and then that ball of light enters you and mixes inseparably with your own mind, which is this limitless, luminous openness. And again, you rest. Then when the first thought arises out of that rest, you can do one of two things. This depends on you. You can realize that you've completely mixed your mind with the mind of the guru. You dedicate the merit of having done that, because it's extremely meritorious to aspire to be a Buddha and then to make a step in that direction. It's great. It's a great thing. So you dedicate the merit of that, or you can go one step more and you can dissolve yourself from the top to the bottom and the bottom and the top into your own heart, to the point where there's nothing but light that goes into the entire universe, and you've shared your own Buddha nature with the Buddha nature of every single sentient being there is, and rest in that. It's a profound dedication when you do that. And then with the first thought, you come back and you think, yeah, the guru and I are like this, let's go. And then you go out and do what you got to do. So, as you can see, these practices, when you do them, particularly in your own language so you understand, can take your mind systematically through these gates and They have built in them periods of rest where you can actually rest in this direct experience. And over time, when you've done it enough, that begins to be incorporated into your worldview and how you see yourself. And profound transformation begins to happen. And that's the crux of that. Well, I've talked for pretty much the whole time here, and I apologize for that, that I didn't leave room for questions and answers. I hope that was helpful to you. But we should dedicate the merit, and I'll hang around here if you've got questions afterwards. Just come on up. We're on, stage screen, TV, radio, everywhere. Hi, everybody out there in the world of Cyberland. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we'll just read this dedication of merit in English. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas, that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate this virtue. Thanks, everybody. It was great.